So after I retired early from EMS, which was February 18th of 2014, I did that because, I had been doing readings and working at EMS for a while. And, it took me forever to finally make that decision to retire early, but I did. And the next day I left to go to Mount Ida, Arkansas, which for those that haven't been there, it's the coolest place. You can dig crystals right out of the earth. It's one of the only places, Arkansas and Brazil. But I went there with some friends and for my birthday, and I had the craziest, coolest, wildest experience. And that was the day after I left EMS. And it was so weird. I started craving fruits and vegetables, and it was like I went through this Kundalini awakening experience in a very short amount of time. But I could feel my body changing, and it was really cool. So we went on that trip, and I came back, and I, of course, am thinking, never going to have to work another day in my life because I don't consider readings work. Well, boy, was I wrong. I went into a depression. It shocked me. I wasn't expecting that. And the reason I did is because, I was so used to being with a partner at EMS. And even though we dealt with tragic stuff, we laughed about everything. And, you have that camaraderie, but there's always laughter. And then I went from that to just doing readings. And, readings are about connecting to people's deceased loved ones. And there's a lot of sadness and tragic stuff, and so I didn't have that outlet like I was so used to, and so I got out of balance, and I had to find my way with that, and ended up going to this school. It's called the Four Winds Society. They call it the Harvard of Energy Medicine, but it was shamanic medicine. It was to become a shamanic practitioner. I was always drawn to shamanism, and it was life-changing. The classes were I'm not sure where they are now, but they were in New York, upstate New York, at Omega Institute, and also at Joshua Tree in California. And, I was going back and forth. And the whole idea is to heal yourself before you can heal others. So we would have to do what's called the medicine wheel, the south, west, north, and east classes. And boy, that was a lot. I was dealing with a lot of emotional stuff. And I remember the first time a shaman worked on me, I had no idea that I needed that to that extreme, because I remember crying for 3 days, and I kept saying, why the hell am I crying like this? And, the friend that was with me, she's like, just cry. Even the Hurricane Katrina stuff came up, and I'm like, I thought I dealt with this 10 years ago, but nope. I had to deal with it again, or I guess deal with it finally. But there was a lot of emotion that came up. It was a really, really awesome practice. Whenever I walked into that class, within 2 hours, I'm like, I am home. These are my people. There were people from all over the world. I think the class was like 40 people. And we did all of the self-care stuff, and then we would learn the practices on how to help others. And that was really life-changing for me. That was what helped bring me back into balance. And so, I was kind of building my practice, I guess. But I'm going to tell you how things unfolded for me. So let me go back. So whenever I was still at EMS, I want to say this was a couple of months before I retired. I was at crew change one day, and one of the people that was coming in, so when we do 2 days off, 2 days on, and then we have a 3-day weekend working our off. But at the end of the second day, then the whole new rotation comes in. So I was on what's called AC, and the BD rotation came in, and I didn't see them that often. So my point is, the person that told me what I'm about to tell you, I rarely saw her, but she happened to come in. We're doing crew change, and she says, Stacey, I want to tell you about something. Have you ever had a Reiki session? And I'm like, no. No. And she said, well, I went to this lady named Lola, and I really think you should go. And it was kind of a weird conversation because that was just not a conversation I had with her ever, right? I think she knew I was doing readings. Maybe that's why she brought it up. So, because let me just keep on. So I know she knew I was doing readings. So that's probably why she brought it up. And I knew what Reiki was, but I had never had a session. And so I said, what's her name? And I wrote it down, the first name and last name, and I stuck it in my uniform pocket. Well, I didn't call. I mean, I didn't even have any intention on making an appointment. But a few days go by. Every time I would change my uniform shirt, everything that was in the pockets, I would just switch over into the clean uniform, into the pockets. And one day, that piece of paper fell out that had her name. And something told me, make an appointment. And the main reason why I did is because her name's Lola. And my spirit guide's name my primary spirit guide is named Lola. So I'm like, all right, that's not a coincidence. Let's just make the appointment. So I did. And I went in. I think it was a 45-minute appointment. And about 15, 20 minutes into it is when I started seeing the white cat with the cross-eyed blue eyes named Frank. And then I saw this man that died, and blah, blah, blah. And anyway, so after she finished the session, I sat up and I said, you have a white cat named Frank? She said, yes. And I said, okay, well, you have blue eyes, cross-eyed blue eyes? And she's like, how do you know that? And then I told her about her dad who had died. And anyway, she was shocked. And I'm like, I don't know what you just did, but you just opened something else up, like in a stronger way. I'm talking about the mediumship part of me. And so, a long story short, she ended up moving her practice, and I ended up taking over her office space. And that's how it all started, because I had been doing readings, but I had done them from home, and I didn't really want to. I just, I was kind of like, I don't know, impartial to it. But anyway, I ended up taking over her space. But here's the cool part. So it was probably a couple of weeks after that before I saw my coworker that recommended her. And I said, hey, I wanted to tell you thank you. And she said, for what? I said, for recommending Lola, because golly, I have to tell you what happened, how all this unfolded. And she said, who? I said, Lola. And she was like, I don't know who you're talking about. She said, I didn't see anybody named Lola. And I said, huh? She said, I saw feet. She's at Agame, up at Acadian and Government Street. I never saw anybody named Lola. And I'm like, wait, I wrote her name down. Like, I have her full name written down. And so I called Lola. I'm like, have you ever seen Sharon? And I told her full name. She said, no. I'm like, whoa, like, what the heck? Like, neither one of them knew each other. So how did I hear the full name? And I won't say it all over here because privacy. I don't know if she'd want me saying her full name, but I guess it doesn't matter. But it's a strange name. It's not a common name. And I pulled it out of my pocket. I still had it in my pocket, and I showed Sharon. I'm like, look, I have her full name. And she said, Stacey, I don't know what to tell you. I have no idea who you're talking about. I've never heard of that place. And I said, well, it's on Acadian. And she said, I've never heard of it. And so, whoa, right? Like, did I just hear the name? Was that Lola, like, making sure I heard the name to get me to the space? Because if it wouldn't have been for me going there, I probably wouldn't be doing readings. I mean, it's just how it unfolded. And so that was pretty wild. I'll never forget that because I'm like, she'd never heard of her. And I went over there based on her recommendation. So I ended up, I started doing readings there and took over her office space. And it was really cool. It was a cool space until I kind of outgrew that. And then I opened my own spiritual center. But it was a good place to start. Had a room that was big enough to do groups up to like maybe 20 people, but I was sharing the space with a massage therapist, and she also was a energy healer. And I just had it was a great place to get started. And But yeah, the whole story with Lola, that was amazing. But things unfolded, and they unfolded very quickly because the person that I was working with there, she said, "Look, let's just get you going. Let's start some groups. We'll get some people together." And she says, "Stacy, you're have you ever had like professional training?" I said, "No, like I've let my spirit guides teach me everything." And she said, "You're really good at this." And and of course I struggled with charging people money, and I didn't at first charge anybody. Then I went by donation. Then I went, and I don't remember how much I charged. And then one day, the friend of mine that was working there, she said, "Stacy, when you go to buy a pair of shoes, if you go to Walmart and buy a pair of shoes, what do you get?" I said, "A Walmart pair of shoes." She said, "Yeah, but if you buy an expensive pair of shoes, what do you get?" "An expensive pair of shoes." And what she was trying to say was, talking about your worth. And I was like, "I'm still struggling with charging." And she said, "Why?" She said, "I understand where you're coming from. I've been there too, but why?" "Because, pastors get paid." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's a good point." So I had to come to terms with that. And plus, we live in a monetary world. I can't not charge. And, it took me a long time to be comfortable with that. But, yeah, that's how I got my start. So I'm going to cut this one off because now I realize if I keep these under 15 minutes, then they're much easier to upload. So sorry, it's a bunch of audio recordings, but that's the only way I can do it.